it's me again. And I'm going to try and pump this video out before the storm hits. So, where I live in Texas, we're under a winter storm warning. And it's supposed to be here in a couple hours. It's like the northern part of it is passing over Abilene now. Parts of, west of San Saba, raining now, but it's supposed to be rain and then turn to snow, and it's supposed to be frozen up until Friday. Friday it's supposed to hit a high of like 45. So today the temperature drops. The high temperature already happened, and it's supposed to drop, and it's supposed to get into the teens, and then Thursday it's not supposed to thaw out at all. It's been trying to prepare for the storm because last year I was in that storm, and thus I've been preparing for this storm. I'm a bit more prepared. I have all the de-icers and things. As long as the power holds. If the power doesn't hold, well, then it's going to have to be like last year where I was when I did get power. It was a mad rush to get water. So I'm on a well. I have my own well. And the pump that runs the well is electricity. So if the power goes out, I don't have any water. So people are like, drip your faucets. I've explained this before. If I drip the faucets, yes, but if the power goes out, I can only drip those faucets for about 2 hours before the pressure in my pressure tank equalizes out because nothing's pumping in. As a result, then you don't have water. Lines will still freeze. So you have to to keep the pressure tank going as long as you can, strategically pick your faucets that you want to drip. As a result, even putting a heat lamp in the well house. The well house is very well insulated, but you still have to put a heat lamp in there. Again, plenty of power goes out, and I'm going to fill up a bunch of buckets with water today. And then if power goes out and I don't have any water, I can use the buckets. That's what I did last year. So let's try and get this video out. I've been thinking about what to do a video on for the past few days. Let's talk about Permian sales because, sorry if my eyes are kind of sticky. I had to wake up in the middle of the night. I've had predator issues. Sadly, 2 of my ducks got eaten by a bobcat. It comes right up to the house, and so it's been eating my ducks, and then I had to get up and try and catch my 1 duck that's left. The goose is easy, he just follows me, but had to try and catch this 1 duck that's left. So let's talk about Permian sales, because Permian Basin is hot. I see a lot of people citing articles from 2019, which I think is great. Remember, guys, 2019, oil was much lower than what it is now. Also, costs were lower. One person cited an article that Exxon had this bold plan to get their cost of goods sold down to $15 a barrel. I don't know if that's possible now because COVID hit. There's shipping logistics. There's a whole bunch of issues that have arisen since 2020, and everybody's sort of kind of raising their cost of goods sold. If Exxon could get down to $20 a barrel, that'd be a Festivus miracle. If they could stay at $25 a barrel, great. If you notice my math, I've started upping the cost of goods sold to about $28. Because I was going off the Continental oil projections for the 2022 and going forward, their cost of goods sold. Continental is really good about showing their cost of goods sold and their models, so I'm basing it off that until more official models come out. But let's talk about those Permian sales. So a really aggressive company right now is Earthstone, and I'll pull that up. Earthstone recently acquired, again, another property. Sorry, guys, if I'm blinking. It's dry here, lots of pollen. So we talked about Earthstone in a previous video and how Earthstone acquired a property in the Midland that was very similar to what McCabe and Masterson would have had they exercised their options. That was in October. Well, here's 2 more Earthstone deals. This talks about, the one was private. And that was from December. That was from Chesapeake Energy, and Earthstone acquired the Chesapeake Energy property. And then just a few days ago, Earthstone Energy agreed to acquire assets of, again, another privately held Bighorn Permian Resources in a cash and stock deal value $860 million. Now, this is for 110,000 net acres. So if you look on this, it says 98% operated. You have 93% working interest. You have some other statistics. It doesn't give you quite the revenue interest. I'm assuming the revenue interest is about 75%. It could be as high as 80% on that. It depends. Bighorn Permian Resources LLC was previously known as Sable, and it shows here in this article that they did have some financial problems due to COVID. A lot of people, were laid off in COVID. Once COVID hit and things started shutting down, I can tell you, Texas, the oil industry was like, oh no, it's 2014 all over again, and things just kill the plug. Everything stopped. And a lot of people were scared again because of 2014. So 2021 was kind of like a new hope. Especially, like I've been telling people, that when that Biden administration rolled out the no drilling on public lands, people who weren't familiar with how oil works, like my father-in-law, he was complaining about it. And he was saying how, it's terrible. It's terrible for him because of the gas pump. But everybody in Texas who had oil was rooting for it because that put more pressure on Texas oil. And everyone went, yeehaw, and fired guns in the air, as is Texas tradition, because there was more demand now for private land. And Texas is the biggest private land holder in the union. We have the least amount of public land, sadly, but we like everything to be privatized here. But this company, Bighorn, had some financial issues from 2020. I think that lent to the price of this, although if you calculate it out, Bighorn's getting a pretty good deal on this. Some of this could be to try and offload debt, to try and clear up debt from the company, from the 2020 issues. Unless you are a really big company, it was hard to stay afloat. I'll also cite Chesapeake. So Chesapeake is okay, a little bit of a post edit here after doing some farm chores. So Chesapeake Energy acquired Chief E&D Holdings for $2 billion in cash and about 9.44 million shares. Okay. That translates to more than $2 billion. Chesapeake did have $2 billion of cash. It's one of like the underdogs. Chesapeake went from like zero to hero in Texas. They had that big office building. I'll put it in here. They had that big office building on the 6th floor of 823 South Congress. Again, so Chesapeake acquired this for $2 billion in cash. Chesapeake had $2 billion in cash on hand on their balance sheet. They're like, we have $2 billion. A lot of people thought that Chesapeake was going to acquire the Oro Grande. They still might, or at least part of it for cash. In addition to other aggressively expanding companies like ConocoPhillips. But Chesapeake bought this. This is from a driller in Texas, North Texas. But it's the assets for the Marcellus Shale. Marcellus is a big natural gas shale in northern Pennsylvania. Again, sorry, my nose is running. Chesapeake also has some gas in Ohio. They have some gas shale in Ohio. Where I lived in Ohio, I lived outside of Cleveland. If you went to the country, like, people would just put like their own gas well on their property. It was crazy. Like they just have a gas well going on their property. But here we go. Chesapeake acquired it for $2 billion in cash and 9.44 million common shares, guys. So this was in January. Let's check out the price of Chesapeake. Dip is at $63 a share, guys. So 9.44 million shares. You know, $594.72 million plus the $2 billion. So that's over $2.5 billion that they paid for this property. And an aggregate of cash and shares, which is nice. And again, a lot of people from Chesapeake have come over to Nextbridge, which, you know, might be why we're excited about this drilling team. Chesapeake stock is in the 60s. So back to the Earthstone acquisition, about what they plan to produce for 2022, which is good. So this is with the two acquisitions with Chisholm and as well as this Bighorn deal. They plan to produce a combine of around 76,000 barrels of oil a day equivalent. That's the oil and gas, which 40% oil and 68% liquid natural gas. We know that the Bighorn property is already producing 42,000 barrel oil equivalent a day. That equals, with the rates that they give, 10 or 25% oil and 15%, 57% liquid natural gas. That equates to about 10,600 barrels of oil a day. Judging by all these numbers, it seemed that they got a pretty high value. They paid, you know, closer to the 18% range. If you do the math, again, I did the math here. I don't want to go specifically into it because there's no like peak value listed. Base estimate on this and the rate of liquid natural gas, it seems like they did pay, you know, around 18%. You know, you have the multiplier, and this is based on the cost of goods sold guy of 28. Also, I gave premium price to the liquid natural gas as well, just to compensate an average, because it looks like some wells are going to have more than others. It seems like the Chisholm has more oil than the Bighorn property, because the combined out of the two properties, you're getting 40% oil and 68% liquids. Which I don't know how that is, because that's over 100%. So I think there's a math error here. How can you have 40% oil and 68% liquids combined? That's over 100%. That's 108%. You can't physically produce 108% of something. Sorry, out of that, it's 100%. Plus, it doesn't have room for anything else. I think whoever wrote this article might have miscalculated something. Again, I'm not sure what they're doing. This math here is very interesting at the bottom. I'm hoping that 72,000 barrel a day equivalent is correct. But doing some rough math, I'm not sure about the Chisholm. I gotta look more into the Chisholm deal. I know the Phoenix deal was also private, back in December. That was private and private. It was hard to find. I was lucky enough to get the names. Looking at this again, they seem to pay premium price on the barrels of oil, and I have increased my cost of goods sold to 28. So any future calculations you see of me, I'm doing 28, but my conviction on the dividend still remains about the same because price of oil is going up. But I have thus moved my cost of goods sold, guys, to 28 a barrel minimum, just following that rule from Continental and their model. Let's also talk about the Maverick that we talked about. Maverick, the former Maverick Natural Resources, has its own operating company, Maverick Operating LLC. It's a subsidiary of Maverick Natural Resources. I cannot talk well today. I need more coffee. And Maverick Natural Resources had acquired a former ConocoPhillips property. This was an older property because this article here states that it is an older property. Now, those wells could be newer wells, but the property itself is more mature. And this seems to be Maverick Natural Resources strategy. They're going to take what they know about operating and they're going to apply it to older wells and use the difference of, how do I say this? They have more strategy in maintaining older rigs and older properties. So if they're more efficient at maintaining older properties, they can reduce their costs, reduce their overhead, recapture that value in these older wells. So people want to FUD and say, well, that Maverick deal is only $440 million. It was also an older property. The wells might have been not that old, but the property itself is an older property. So what's left on it, might be all you get. Again, I'm not sure how old this property is. I can tell you from this article that there's only 4 wells on Bighorn that were producing that much. I'm kind of like, whoa, okay, so you had 4 wells on the property producing, around just over 10,000 barrel oil equivalent a day. That's oil and natural gas liquids. That's pretty impressive, if that's the case. But property is hot, and I know a lot of FUD is going to be, well, if property's so hot, they still can't sell it. What does that say? There's nothing there. Again, refer back to the horse treats video. I'll also cite this article. So this stated in, this is, what's the guy's name? Keith Cole. He's a big oil play guy. You can pay buku bucks to subscribe to his oil play group. He got super excited upon the Mike Mullen report confirmation of the oil. He got very excited. He actually talked to executives from Torchlight, and this article is about a recap of somebody who talked to Keith Cole about his recap. And after the confirmation in April of 2020, Berto went on Wall Street Reporter, and I'll cite this article. It seems like the guy he talked with didn't really know a whole lot about oil. Berto kind of laughs so he's like, the interviewer says, oh, so what are you thinking, 500 million? And Berto's like, well, that's about 13 cents a barrel in the ground, which is very low. But this article of Keith Cole talks about how once this was confirmed, they gave about 7 presentations to different companies, ranging from 400 million in value to 100 billion in value. Both private equity firms like EIG and public, although, we don't know for sure because it was all NDA. And they were planning again later doing another round with 4 of those that were still interested. But as we all know, just as oil was starting to recover, COVID hit. And like I said, everybody shut her down. So there was a strong possibility that everything got shut down. Who was looking at property or acquiring to drill more, I know was not. Because friends of mine who have gas properties, they were hoping that more wells would be drilled on their property, and for COVID, and it was like 2014 all over again. But now that oil's heating, it started to get warm. latter half of 2021, and now it's really heating up again. And especially with international tensions and these storms coming in, oil's starting to heat up. Companies can afford to now drill. They got more money. They can afford to go get more properties, drill more, acquire more, expand. It works to our advantage. Also, what works to our advantage is the lack of infrastructure on the property. Because of that, it really is easy for TEQC. And I apologize if I said TWAC sometimes. The TWAC is the Texas Water Authority Commission, which does water quality, which in part you have to get permits for with this. But TEQC, the Texas Environment Quality Commission, again, sometimes I get them mixed up in my head. I apologize for that. I know I've said that before in the past. There are regulations on the wells. You can't put old fracking water into old wells, dried wells anymore. That's fine. Our property is so underdeveloped. You have to use a tank anyways, a lined tank. Put your fracking water in it, old fracking water. And I talked about this with Eyeless, can you apply some of that technology to aerate that fracking water? You have to truck water in, truck water out, essentially, and that adds to the cost. But our property was so underdeveloped anyways that was already part of the cost in it. So, good on us. It's not really affected us like it has with other properties. If the property's underdeveloped, now that's a big consideration. Or if it's an older property and you want to drill some new wells on it, that's a consideration too. But it works in our favor. Okay, guys, time to edit this. I will see you soon. Goodbye.